So Jeremy Jones here, explaining how to install a Granda system. It could be a triple filter system or a quad system with 10-inch housings or 20-inch housings. So essentially, you've got to imagine that we are in a situation where you've got the mains riser coming into the house and you've got a space where you can install your filters and the Granda unit. Now, so once you've chosen where you're going to hang the Granda unit, the filters rather, you offer them up. In this instance, there's going to be two here, and then two more next to it over here. Now, one of the important criteria for installing the Granda system is, the Granda system is they're going to sit at the end of the filters. You always put the Granda unit in at the end. Now, it's really important that when you install the Granda unit, it's at least 1.5 meters away from any electrical cables, fuse boards or pumps. So that's really, really important. So there must be a clear space where there is no electromagnetic interference with the Granda unit. So we recommend at least 1.5 meters away. So this is just a brief demonstration to show you the impact of the electromagnetics coming off the electrical fuse board. And I have a tri-field meter here set to the magnetic electrical setting here, and if I bring the unit up, you start to hear the values going up. So this is really by way of showing you that we need at least 50 centimeters from any major electrical activity of the Granda unit. So that's around about 50 centimeters. Ideally larger, so we ought to be on the safe side. If it's 1.5 meters or 1 meter, that's better. If it's in between a washing machine and dishwasher, obviously you want to have it in the middle or as far away from any of the electric motors. But this is just a little additional information so that you're aware that these fields do exist, and they increase exponentially. So they drop off quite quickly. But I have noticed that in some houses where you have big electrical cables coming in, you do get a much larger spike. So if it's a big house and you're in a plant room or a garage, then you really want to ensure that you're at least 1 meter or more than 1 meter away, 1.5 meters away from the electrical and or pumps as well, so heating pumps and that sort of thing. So when you've offered up the filters, the filters come with a union like this for the end, and also a single plastic thread in the middle. But we find that really difficult to install. So what we recommend is inch BSP to 22 mil compression with a small stretch of copper 22 in the middle, either side, here and here, to bring these together. Now, the challenge that we have with this is that when you offer the brass union up to the plastic housing, it's really important not to cross thread. At the end here, for instance, you'll come out actually probably, if there's enough space, in the recommended supplied fitting here, which is reducing to 22. So once you've got the filters in place and you've got the section for the plate to hold the Granda unit up, and that's all marked and in the right position because you've offered the Granda unit up here, you've offered the Granda unit up, you know exactly what space you're going to need, you've looked at the sizing and you know the distances. When you're installing the Granda unit, what we recommend you do is that the Granda unit comes with 1.25 inch male brass unions. They're tapered, they're not parallel. And so what we recommend you do is you use Loctite 55 and you wind the Loctite 55 as you would normally do around the thread. But in this instance, with the Grande unit, we recommend that you put a few extra turns of Loctite 55 into the valleys, so you almost can't see the valleys, so it's compacted in. Now, we then recommend you use, on top of that, the multi-purpose jointing compound. I mean, these are protocols that you probably follow anyway, but we just have to be very specific about this because we have had some installation engineers doing this and they get weeping on the Grande unit. And the way to avoid this is to put too much Loctite 55 jointing compound onto the on top of the Loctite 55, and then offer this unit the union up into the Grande unit, and then tighten off with a Steelson. And this way you can do it gently and slowly. Try to avoid scratching the housing, and what that means is that you've got a lot of torque, a lot of power to essentially bring that union in, so that by the time that's in on both sides, there's no way that's going to weep. And so that's really important, because there's nothing more annoying than getting a Grande unit in place, commissioning the system, and then discovering that it's weeping. So once these brass unions are in both sides, that's the first part of the installation for the Grande unit. And then what you'll need to buy in a plumber's merchants before you come to the site is the 1.25" to 35mm reducer, compression to a 22 reducer, and then that would then go, again you'd use the same protocol, Loctite 55, compound, jointing compound, and depending on the space you could either use an elbow, 1.25", or whatever you're going to use. In this instance we're just going to put another one on here. Now what's important about the installation is that you've also built in a bypass, so that it means the customer can keep the supply to the house and isolate the filter when they do the filter swap out. So we're assuming you've built a pipe bypass in. The other important caveat is the Grande unit uses very subtle resonant magnetic frequencies known as paramagnetics and diamagnetics. So it's not ferromagnetic. And one of the important prerequisites for siting the Grande unit is to ensure that the unit is at least 1.5 meters from the electrical supply. So you want to try and avoid at least, we say ideally 1.5 meters away. Sometimes that's very difficult. The minimum distance would be 50 centimeters. So not near any pumps, because obviously pumps when they're running produce a magnetic field, or washing machine pumps, or fuse boards, or heavy duty cabling. We need to keep the Grande unit away from these fields. So you've located the Grande unit, you've built in the bypass, and then you offer the Grande unit up to the system for installation. So that's how it would go roughly. You would then put in your lever bore valve bypass, and that is essentially the installation side of things. When you're ready to commission the system, what you do is obviously keep this turned off and then introduce the water at the other end here, slowly turning on the tap, letting the chambers fill, looking for weeps, only leaking, and then you then press these buttons on the top, which allow the air, trapped air, to escape through the filters. You press them and you hear a hissing and a spluttering, and when the water comes out, you know those chambers are filled with water. And you press the other one, and then it'll cough and splutter, and then it'll just be pure water coming out, and then that way you know there's no airlocks in here. You then look at the system, check for weeps. If there's any weeping coming out of here, obviously just get the spanner and do a very, very small, light nudge to tighten up, to make sure that those are all sealed. And then obviously you want to check around the actual Granda unit here and check the seals with a torch. And maybe put a dry tissue underneath to check that there's no weeping. Give it 5-10 minutes just to make sure that everything is completely sealed. And then when you're ready, you can then open up the system, allow the water to flow through, and allow it to flush for about 7 minutes. And what we recommend actually is that you draw off some water before you install the system, and then after it's flushed for 7 minutes, do a comparison with the water before and afterwards, and you'll be amazed at at the difference. Just a quick side note that when you've installed the Granda system, if it's in a garage where the ambient temperature is similar to outside temperature, this is not an issue. But in some instances, when the Granda unit is installed in a kitchen, under the kitchen sink, or in an attic, or in an area where you essentially is indoors, where it's warm, then obviously the cold water from outside, when it comes through the Granda unit, will cause condensation to happen on the actual Granda unit itself. Now, sometimes clients might think that it's the Granda unit that's weeping, but actually it's just the condensation coming off the Granda unit. The way around this is to wrap the Granda unit with some form of insulation, whether it's a neoprene insulation or some kind of lagging to surround it, so this will essentially stop the warm air hitting it and causing it to condensate. So it's just a little brief additional information for those installations that are indoors where warmth is an issue in creating condensations. So for those plumbing engineers that are interested in what Granda is all about, in a nutshell, the Granda unit here has inside it chambers which hold water. Now this water, this is called information water, and this information water sits in these cells indefinitely in the red areas here, and the water flows through all the way around and out the other side. Now once the water's been through this unit, the water structure is changed. So from the filter side of things, what we're doing is we're changing the quantitative contaminants in the water body. We're getting rid of the chlorine, the heavy metals, the fluoride, nitrates, nitrites, and essentially bringing that water up to a very, very high level of potability. So that's the quantitative side of things. With the Granda unit, we're dealing with the qualitative side. Now, new water science is now proving to us that water has an inner structure and an inner coherence. And so the inventor, from over 50 years ago, found a way of taking very, very pure mountain water from an old medieval copper mine. And this water basically they still bottle it today. You can drink it as a pure water. But what the inventor did was he found a way of treating this very pure water to act as a transmitter or a tuning fork. So bizarre as that might sound, this water essentially has a very, very high coherence, and that coherence is transmitted to the tap water. And so the peer-reviewed science now confirms that there are 3 key areas where this revitalization system impacts water at a mechanical engineering level. The first is that it self-seeds calcium carbonate. So when you are using this water and it goes through heat exchangers in a home, in white goods or in a hot water tank, there will be no calcite saturation on the actual pipes themselves. Now this means that the the longevity of white goods is increased massively. And this is a peer-reviewed science, all downloadable from the website. The second anomaly is that Granda revitalized water acts as a probiotic to stimulate the natural bacteria in water and to increase water stability. And the third thing is we have just discovered very recently that the water has such coherence, it actually benefits the gut biome of human cell tissue. So the epithelial cells are increased in their integrity by 17.4%. So this is a very exciting piece of news about how the tap water can actually have a health benefit for living systems. There are many, many other benefits that come from drinking or using Granda water. Plants thrive, for instance. There's less build-ups. The crystallization that does happen on surfaces, the crystals are much, much smaller. So, for instance, when you get water drying out, the calcium carbonate that dries out is much, much finer and much easier to clean. The water is naturally soft. You haven't got to use a salt softener, and so things lather up more easily. There are many, many benefits from using this technology. We also have units dedicated for primary heating circuits, and those go on the primary hot water return, and that essentially means that the water, when you're in your heating system, will run completely clear and odorless without the need for Fernox. So this is another addition to increasing the longevity of a wet system. And particularly for underfloor where you've got low temperature gradients and it's a perfect breeding ground for biofilm. Granda naturally inhibits the pathogenic activity of biofilm, so it's very unusual to have water in a wet system, radiator system, where there is no odour and it runs completely clear. And this is the consequence of using what's known as the Granda K units in a heating system. So I hope that's been helpful, and do give me a call if you need further help, or drop me an email, and I'll look after and help you when you're doing your installation. Thanks for watching.